about 3 years ago, and she had nothing together. He was telling me that he didn't even have time to grieve over his own mother. Right. He basically had to grieve for about 15 minutes, put the grief on the shelf, and then start planning. That is not healthy. You know, he ended up taking most of that frustration out, and as human beings, we tend to do that. Yes. That frustration needs an exit at that point. So he ended up taking most of that frustration out on his own family. It wasn't fair to his wife or children, but it especially was not fair to himself. Right. All right? And then, you know, many of the, you know, when you're dealing with your affairs and how things are structured and knowing where you want to go and what you want to think, the confusion that comes up amongst the family, that's dealt with and out the way. Right. There is no confusion at that point because it's very cut and dry, which gives peace of mind to our loved ones. Peace of mind that they don't have to deal with this on one of the worst days of their lives. Because quite frankly, have any of you ever has anyone lost a family member? Was that a very easy transition or was it pretty difficult to deal with? It was difficult. And most of the time it probably wasn't in order. You had to deal with it at that time. Right. There's nothing, and that's the very, very common misconception that we have, that we think that we got to wait till somebody die, and then we come to the funeral home. And then what happens? We get taken advantage of at times. Is that right? Yes, sir. Because emotion is something. You know, emotions and money do not go together very well. Yes, sir. Right. For the person who has the money, that is. Right. It works very well on the opposite end. That's true. But it doesn't work for you who come in there with all of your life hard-earned savings to come and spend it to go on the ground somewhere. See, our job at Terrell Brody is not to do that. Our job is to put the control back in your hands. When you have it in your hands, you deal with it as a wise and intelligent person and deal with it while you are not grieving over anybody. Right. While you're still, or that person is still alive. While you're of sound mind and body and not making decisions on the deathbed. All right? So, you know, we have to keep in mind, we ain't Hezekiah. All right? We have to wait for you are sick and on your deathbed before you start making these arrangements and praying for more time. The fact is that none of us know when that time is, when it's going to happen, but we have to understand what's going to come behind that. But also in dealing with that, there are financial aspects that really cause the most confusion. It really causes the most drama with insurances, and people are not aware about how insurance works. People think that their insurance is guaranteed to be there and it's guaranteed. Let me be the first to tell you, it don't work like that. And the reason being is that first and foremost, insurance for that matter, and dealing with that, there are all types of insurances to have. But guess what? All of them ain't the best thing for you. That's right. All right. All right. Many of us y'all remember them policies, Mr. Insurance Man come knocking at your door, getting that little 10, 15 cents a week, $3, $4 a month. Sometimes Mr. Insurance Man didn't turn your money in. You thought you had coverage. You paid faithfully for years. Something happened. No money, no policy, nothing. And then you got to do the whole pass in the hat. Then there's fish fries. Then you as pastors, I'm sure you don't have somebody want to come to the church and ask the church for a little help. Is that right? Oh, yes. Well, yes. I think that you all know that that's not very, very convenient for the church, nor is it convenient for the parishioners that are at that church. Right. But the fact is that when we take the initiative to have these things in order, we don't have to even worry about the confines of what the insurance is going to do, because let me be the first to tell you, if you don't already know, the older you get, the less insurance you're going to have anyway. Reason being, the older you get, the more it's going to cost you. Yes. Plus, the older you get, a lot of companies, anyway, when you get a certain age, 70, 85 above, they start reducing your face amount. Some will drop you altogether. And then the older you get, the sicker most of us become, and then you have those pre-existing conditions. All right? Well, what happens is big old gap comes up. The gap comes from cost of funerals going up, because guess what? Funerals double in cost every 10 years. You know, right now, the national average in the United States for a funeral across America is around $20,000. That's a lot of money right now, would you agree? Okay, well, guess what it's projected to be in the next 8 years? Around $35,000. In the next 18 years, by the year 2030, it's projected to be $63,000 for a funeral. Now, that was based off a Time magazine article, and that was done by the United States Savings and Loan League, and they just was assuming that off of 6% annual inflation. Now, these are things that, if you're not aware, I heard a lot of talk about America, but the American dollar is not as prestigious as it used to be. No. Which is why everything costs so much now. All right? So the fact is that funerals are no different from that. So we have these little nickel dime things. We think $500. You think $500 is going to do it for you today, huh? Or $4,000 or $2,000. And then as times progress, it's not the value of what you have. It goes down. So we end up stuck financially. And we end up in the same predicament. Well, when you prearrange, you lock in the cost of the service. That means that first and foremost, whatever it is that you set it up to be, because you're designing the price, you control what you want things to be and what you want things to cost at that point. By you having your affairs in order, because you're picking them themselves versus emotional family members, them doing it for you. And at that point, you determine what things will be. And then you lock that cost in. All right? And then at that point, you're not dealing with the cost increases over time, and you have things frozen, whereas everybody else who waits for things to happen, they got to come in and they bring their little insurance policy, if they have insurance, and pay whatever that year's cost is, except for you or those that have to deal with that. Also, in dealing with the fact on the financial aspect of it, you're dealing with the fact that not only does it lock in the cost of the service, but it also insures the person at the same time. Now, all of us have various health conditions and whatnot, but see, many of us are used to paying on something forever and ever. These are the type of things that you pay off, that you're not paying on forever and ever and ever, paying on 35, 50 years for some insurance, and you didn't spend $100,000 and you got $5,000 worth of insurance. Okay, well that's not very wise when it comes to finances, of course. But when you pay your things, when you have these affairs done, you actually pay this off. But it also insures, because people ask the question, well, what happens if I pass away? I'm only in it, a year or two. Where in most cases, people have it fully locked in and covered after the first payment. Which means that if you go through it financially and it's structured that way, that means that if something were to happen to you, you started your arrangements today, and God forbid you pass maybe the next month, or we don't know when that's going to be, under a full benefits, you will be fully covered under the first payment. And that way there would be no bill passed on. There wouldn't be any other insurances that would have to be used. It would be fully covered. And I ask people these things all the time. What is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to just pay for your funeral, or are you trying to also, well, you got to deal with that, but also leave your family members something behind? Because many of us think that insurance is for funerals when it's not. See, life insurance is actually meant for your loved ones to pass on as wealth instead of debt. Many times in death, we pass on debt. Okay? Well, life insurance is called life insurance. It's not called death insurance, bury me insurance, burial insurance. It's not that. You go to white communities, most of them are taught very thoroughly on how to use it. What they train white communities to do is very specific. Take the money, pay off debt, not necessarily the deceased person's debt, but your own debt. If you're alive, you got some debt. All right? In most cases. All right, pay that off. When your debt's gone, you're free. Debt is like slavery. Paying it off frees you and your money up. Then supplementing income, because guess what? No matter who you lost in your household, I guarantee you the electricity bill will still come. And it's still going to be the same price, if not more. All right? The water company don't care who died in your family. The cable company don't care who died in your family. You still going to have bills. It's meant to supplement that income. All right? It's also meant, of course, to pay off mortgages. We go 30 years in a house, and you 30 years paying on a house that you done paid 2 or 3 times over what it's worth, and not to mention, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars over what it's worth. Well, paying it off early could potentially save those hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's what life insurances are for. And also education. Children, grandchildren, want to go to college. College is not cheap, nor is it free. But most of us, and I can bear witness twice to this, that we rely heavily on student loans, and student loans are just like mortgages. You come out of school with a degree, and that degree does not guarantee you a job, by the way. And then you end up 20, 30 years in debt paying on some school loans.